Christmas used to mean something in our family, or at least I thought it did. My name's Nolan. I'm 34 years old, no wife, no kids, just a decent condo, a great dog named Miso, and a solid career in marketing that lets me work remote most days. I'm not rich, but I do well enough. Well enough that when I fly home for the holidays, I don't think twice about booking first class or picking up the tab when we all go out for dinner. And for a long time, I didn't mind. I'm the oldest of three, and growing up, I always felt responsible for keeping the peace. That instinct never really went away. My brother Liam is 31. Always been the golden boy. Not because he earned it, but because he learned early how to get under people's skin in just the right way and still come out looking like the victim. He married young, had 2 kids, and works in IT, though you'd think he was solving world hunger with the way our parents fawn over him. My sister Natalie is 28, self-employed content creator, which is a fancy way of saying she makes money off brand deals and viral TikToks. She lives at home still, or as she puts it, saving money and building her platform. Right. Then there's my parents. Mom, the classic over-involved matriarch who still thinks she needs to referee our adult conversations like we're 12, and Dad, who checked out emotionally sometime around 2009 and mostly just grunts from behind a newspaper or TV remote. They live in the same suburban house we all grew up in, the one with the worn-out Christmas lights that only half work but still go up every year because tradition matters. I fly in every Christmas. I stay at a hotel nearby because after the Great Turkey argument of 2018, don't ask, I realized staying in that house for more than a few hours was a guaranteed way to lose my sanity. But I still come. I still show up with gifts. I still try. I don't know if it's guilt or hope, but every year I convince myself maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe this time we'll actually feel like a family again. This year, I went all out. I don't know what got into me. Maybe it was the way Mom kept dropping hints about how hard the year had been for everyone, how Natalie was between partnerships, and Liam's company had done a round of layoffs. He survived, of course, but morale was low apparently. I was doing well, picked up a couple of big freelance clients, got a holiday bonus that surprised even me, and I figured, what the hell? If ever there was a year to be generous, this was it. So I spent over $2,000 on gifts. For Liam and his wife, I bought a full smart home starter kit, smart thermostat, doorbell cam, voice assistant, the works. For Natalie, I got her the newest iPhone and a ring light setup I saw her mention once in passing during a FaceTime call. For Mom, a spa day package at the nicest place in town and a custom necklace with the birthstones of all her kids. For Dad, a top-of-the-line electric drill set he'd probably never use but always talked about wanting. And for my 2 little nieces, let's just say the Barbie dream house wasn't even the main event. There were toys, books, clothes, enough to make a 10-year-old's head spin. I wrapped everything myself. Took time to pick the paper, tie little bows. Had tags printed with each person's name in gold script. I even shipped everything ahead to Mom and Dad's house 2 weeks early so I wouldn't have to travel with a mountain of boxes. Mom texted me when the packages arrived. Everything came. You're too much, Nolan. I smiled. Maybe this year. Christmas morning came. I drove over early, like I always do, coffee in hand, wearing the sweater Mom gave me 2 years ago because she always notices that kind of thing. Everyone was already there. Liam on the couch, one arm around his wife, the kids bouncing off the walls. Natalie filming the Christmas tree for her story before anyone could even say hello. Mom was in the kitchen, apron on, humming carols. Dad nodded at me from his recliner. I smiled despite myself. Okay, this could be good. We did breakfast, then migrated to the living room. The tree was buried in presents. I could spot the ones I'd wrapped from across the room, stacked neatly off to the side. Natalie passed out the gifts, playing Elf, narrating into her phone like a talk show host. I sat down on the floor near the fireplace, excited. Not for what I'd get, I didn't care about that. I just wanted to see their faces. The joy, the surprise. That feeling you get when you absolutely nail the perfect gift. Liam opened his first. It was from Natalie, a novelty mug with some inside joke printed on it. He laughed like it was the greatest thing ever. His wife handed him a second gift, socks. More laughter. Natalie opened a fuzzy robe from Mom and squealed. Dad got a new wallet. The kids tore into toy after toy. Everyone was talking over each other, laughing, tossing wrapping paper across the room like confetti. But none of them were opening the gifts I sent. I glanced at the stack. Still untouched. I cleared my throat. Hey, did you guys get the boxes I sent? The ones that came earlier. Mom paused, her smile flickering just for a second. Oh, honey, yes. But, well, we can't find them. I blinked. What? They were here, she said, frowning now. But this morning, we couldn't find the boxes. We think maybe they got misplaced? Or mixed up in the garage. You know how things get. Liam snorted from the couch. Maybe next year, don't try so hard. I turned to look at him. He was smirking. Not joking smirking, taunting. The kind of smirk that says something very different from the words that just came out of your mouth. I felt my stomach drop, like a trapdoor opened beneath my chest, and I was suddenly falling through something I couldn't see. The room was still loud, still full of paper and laughter and blinking lights. But suddenly it felt cold. Off. Wrong. Natalie didn't look up from her phone. Dad didn't say a word. Mom suddenly busied herself collecting empty boxes like it was the most urgent task in the world. It hit me then, hard and fast, like a slap I hadn't seen coming. They planned this. They knew exactly what I'd sent. They knew it would make everything else look small by comparison. They didn't want that. They didn't want me to be the one who gave the best gifts. So they lost them, hid them, maybe even left them at someone else's house on purpose. And Liam's smirk? That was the confirmation. That was the mask slipping, just for a second. I sat there, surrounded by the mess of everyone else's joy, and felt this slow, creeping numbness spread through me. Like my body didn't know whether to fight or freeze. But my mind was suddenly clear. I stood up slowly, smiled, a real smile, tight-lipped and sharp. Okay, I said, dusting off my jeans. Cool. Mom looked up, startled. Where are you going? I just remembered something, I said casually, stepping over a half-unwrapped dollhouse. Be right back. And then I walked into the kitchen, calm, focused, because I had one more gift they hadn't opened. And this one was about to change everything. The kitchen was quieter than I expected. Just the low hum of the fridge and the occasional squeal of laughter from the living room filtering through the walls like static. I stood by the counter, hands braced on the cool marble, trying to steady my breathing. I wasn't even angry yet. Not really. Just stunned. Hollowed out in a way I hadn't felt since high school. The night I overheard my parents telling Liam, "He's just more sensitive than you. Try to be nicer." Like it was my fault I cared too much. Like I had to apologize for feeling excluded. I opened the fridge, pretending to look for something. Anything. I needed a second to think. What now? I hadn't brought anything explosive. No big dramatic reveal, no confrontation planned. But there was something I'd packed, just in case. Something I wasn't even sure I'd need. I spotted the gift bag near the back door where I'd left it when I came in, small, inconspicuous, wrapped in matte black paper. It wasn't for any of them. Not technically. But now, it might as well have been. I picked it up and turned it over in my hands. But before I could even process what I was going to do with it, I heard Liam's voice float in from the living room. Seriously though, I get it. Nolan wants to feel important. But come on, $2,000 on gifts? That's just performative. Performative. Like it was an act. Like I wasn't sincere. Like everything I'd done, the planning, the money, the effort, was just some theatrical stunt to win points. I don't think he knew I could hear him. Or maybe he didn't care. Mom's voice chimed in, softer. He's always been like that. Wants everything to be perfect. It's exhausting. Then Natalie, it's not even about the gifts. It's that he expects some kind of medal every time. I'm sorry, but if you're going to make a big production of it, don't sulk when things don't go your way. Laughter followed. Not mean exactly. Worse. Dismissive. Familiar. Like this wasn't the first time they'd had this conversation. I didn't realize how tight I was gripping the edge of the counter until I felt a sharp pain in my palm. I looked down. My hand was clenched into a fist. That was it. That was the moment it all cracked open. The betrayal wasn't just this morning. It had been happening for years, brick by subtle brick, and I'd let them build a damn fortress out of it. I thought about every time I'd shown up. Every time I paid for dinner and waved it off. Every time I spent hours choosing gifts that actually meant something. Every time I listened, supported, showed up for birthdays and recitals and graduations. Every time I swallowed the lump in my throat when Liam or Natalie made some backhanded joke and Mom said, "They're just teasing. Don't be so sensitive." I thought about the time I told Mom I was struggling with anxiety during college, and she said, "You've always been dramatic." I thought about when I got promoted last year, and she said, "Good for you. Now maybe you can help Liam with his mortgage." I thought about how Natalie once posted a birthday story tagging every family member except me. And when I asked about it, she said, "Oh, you weren't in the group pic. Didn't think you'd care." It was never just one thing. It was death by 1,000 dismissals. And this was the funeral. I took the matte black gift bag and walked back into the living room. The energy shifted the moment I stepped in. I could feel it. Liam was mid-sentence, something about his oldest kid being gifted, but his words trailed off when he saw me. Natalie's eyes flicked up from her phone. Mom paused, hands full of wrapping paper. Even Dad glanced over the top of his newspaper. I smiled. Calm. Measured. "Sorry," I said, lifting the bag. "Just remembered something." Natalie squinted. "What's that?" "Oh," I said, setting the bag down on the coffee table. "This one's special. Thought I might give it now." Mom tilted her head. "But we still haven't found your other gifts." "It's fine," I cut in. "This one's not like the others." Liam laughed, like he couldn't help himself. "Let me guess. Another humble brag moment." I turned to him, still smiling. "Something like that." I reached into the bag and pulled out a stack of envelopes. Each one was sealed with a wax stamp, just something I'd done for flair. I handed the first to Natalie. She looked confused. "Is this money?" "Open it." She tore the flap, pulled out a folded sheet of paper, and stared. Her brow furrowed. "Wait, what is this?" "It's a contract," I said. "For what?" "Your content studio," I replied smoothly. "The one you've been talking about launching for 2 years?" I leased a space in downtown, already wired with studio lighting and soundproofing. 6-month lease, fully paid. You just have to show up. Her mouth dropped open. "You what?" I handed the next envelope to Liam. "Here." He opened it slowly, suspicious now. "Read it." Then blinked. "You're joking." "Nope," I said. "That's a contract for a full home security upgrade. Monthly service included. And I covered your next 6 months of mortgage payments. Figured it'd free you up to spend more time with the kids." He didn't say anything, just stared at the paper like it might bite him. I turned to Mom and Dad, handing them a heavier envelope. "And for you too. That cruise you always talk about? I booked it. 12 days in the Mediterranean. All expenses paid. I even upgraded to the balcony suite." Mom gasped. "But," I added, "it's fully refundable. So if you're not interested, no pressure." Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. The kids had even stopped unwrapping their toys. I stood there, arms loose at my sides, heart pounding but face steady. Then I said, softly, "These were going to be your Christmas gifts." I spent weeks organizing everything. Took time off work. Coordinated with agents. Paid deposits. Made calls. All because I wanted to do something nice. No one spoke. But then, I continued. "You told me my gifts got lost. And I might have believed you. Except someone made a mistake." I turned to Liam. "You shouldn't have smirked, man." He stiffened. "I didn't." "Yes, you did," I said flatly. "And I've known you long enough to recognize that smug little twist in your mouth. That's your I won face." Mom stepped forward. "Nolan, let's not make a scene." I laughed. Now she didn't want a scene. "Mom," I said, locking eyes with her, "you lost my gifts. But let me ask you, where exactly were they stored?" She hesitated. "In the garage?" "Right," I said, "because I went out there earlier. Wanted to grab a soda from the fridge. You know what I found behind the recycling bins?" Her face drained of color. I looked around the room. Every single box I sent. Still sealed. Still untouched. Natalie muttered something under her breath. I ignored it. "You didn't lose them," I said. "You hid them. You planned this. Probably because you thought what I sent would make everyone else look bad. Like I was trying to outshine you." No one denied it. Not a word. And that's when the rage finally caught up to me. Not loud or dramatic, just quiet and absolute, like a blade sliding into place. I picked up the envelopes. "One more thing," I said. "All these gifts. The contracts? They're canceled." Natalie's head snapped up. "What?" Liam stood. "You're kidding." "I'm not." Every gift had a 48-hour cancellation policy. I didn't expect to need it, but, well, here we are. "But," Mom began. "I wanted this Christmas to be different," I said, cutting her off. "I wanted to believe we could be different. But you know what? I see it now. This isn't about me being too much. It's about you never thinking I was enough. Not when I was a kid. Not now. You don't want a son who shows up. You want one who stays in his lane. I turned to leave. And then, behind me, I heard Natalie say, low and sharp, "You're so dramatic." I froze, turned slowly, and that's when I knew what I was going to do next. Because I hadn't told them the real gift yet. The one thing I'd brought for myself. The one thing they didn't see coming. But I wasn't going to say it here. Not yet. Not in this room. Not with all their eyes on me like I was the villain in some Christmas play gone off script. No, this gift deserved a moment. And I was going to give it the stage it needed. So I smiled, nodded, and walked out the front door without another word, leaving behind a room full of stunned silence, crumpled wrapping paper, and the cold, echoing absence of the son they thought would never walk away. I didn't cry until I got to the car. I don't know what it was, the cold leather against my back, the sight of the empty hotel keycard on the passenger seat, or maybe just the crushing weight of 34 Christmases collapsing into one awful moment. But I sat there in the parking lot gripping the steering, well, like it was the only thing keeping me from falling apart. And I broke. Not the dramatic movie kind, either. Just silent. Helpless. That pathetic sort of crying where your chest aches, but no sound comes out. Where you feel stupid for crying in the first place, but too numb to stop. I thought I prepared myself. I really did. But nothing prepares you for the moment you realize you've been the only one trying. For years, I drove back to the hotel in silence. No music, no podcasts. Just the dull hum of the road and the occasional pang of humiliation clawing at my throat. The front desk lady smiled at me when I walked in. I nodded back, barely. When I got to my room, I collapsed face first on the bed and just lay there. Still wearing my sweater. Still clutching my keys. I must have stayed that way for hours. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the clarity. The sharp, blinding realization that I'd been playing a role in a play no one else cared to rehearse. That every year I kept showing up with hope, and every year they chipped away at it until there was nothing left but duty. And I wasn't going to do it anymore. The next morning, I checked out early. The roads were icy. Flights delayed. But I didn't care. I sat at the airport bar sipping burnt coffee and thinking. Not planning. Just thinking. Letting the silence stretch out like a blank canvas. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel guilty. I flew home to Denver 2 days early. Miso nearly tackled me when I walked through the door. That dog had no idea what I was carrying. The weight of rejection, the sting of humiliation, but somehow she knew. She followed me room to room, gentle and quiet, like a shadow that loved me anyway. The condo felt warm, safe, and achingly empty. But I wasn't going to fill it with distractions. Not this time. I unplugged for a while. Turned off social media. Let the group chat from my family go unread. Ignored the "where are you" texts. I needed space. Space to breathe. Space to figure out who I was when I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. And at first, that space felt like a void. Until it didn't. It started small. I reorganized my closet. Deleted half the junk from my hard drive. Canceled a few subscriptions I didn't even realize I still had. Things that had been on the back burner for months, maybe years. It felt good. Like sweeping out cobwebs from corners I'd forgotten existed. Then I opened a folder on my computer labeled Ideas. Inside were scraps of projects I'd started and abandoned, half-written blog posts, presentation outlines, app mock-ups, product names. Things I'd once been excited about until life got too noisy. One idea caught my eye. A side project I'd scribbled out during the pandemic. A platform for remote freelancers to share resources, negotiate better rates, and connect with ethical clients. I'd called it Anchor, just a placeholder name at the time. But looking at it now, something clicked. The last few years had taught me how often people like us, independent creatives, remote workers, freelancers, got taken advantage of, ghosted on invoices, underpaid, overworked, alone. Maybe this wasn't just a project. Maybe it was mine. And this time, I wasn't going to ask for permission. I started slowly. Nights and weekends. Built out a simple prototype. Talked to other freelancers I trusted. The feedback was better than I expected. Encouraging. Constructive. Honest. A few of them wanted in. Helped me polish the design. One even offered to build the back end. We weren't a company. Not yet. But we were building something real. Something tangible. In February, I filed the LLC. By March, we had a beta group of 200 users. And by April, We landed a partnership with a mid-sized digital agency looking for an ethical freelancer pool. They were sick of shady platforms too. I didn't tell my family, not because I was hiding, but because I finally understood they weren't the audience I was building for. They'd never seen me clearly, only the version they expected, and I wasn't interested in shrinking back to fit that mold again. The calls came anyway. At first, it was just Mom, leaving voicemails that sounded sweet, but always ended with a guilt trip. "Hope you're doing well, honey. We're all still a little confused about what happened. The girls missed you. Liam said you left without saying goodbye. We'd love to talk. You know how important family is." I didn't respond. Then Natalie texted. A photo of her standing in the studio I'd nearly gifted her, the same one I canceled. She'd leased it herself, apparently. "Guess I didn't need your charity after all." Smiley face. That one stung more than I'd like to admit. Not because I wanted credit, but because the message was clear: we don't need you. We never did. Liam finally reached out around Easter. Just a one-line message. "Still think that stunt at Christmas was a good look?" I blocked him. By May, I was a different person. Not flashy, not famous, just grounded. I woke up with purpose, worked with people who respected me, took long walks with Miso, started therapy, stopped apologizing for my boundaries, invested in my own peace like it was the most important asset I had, because it was. I still had moments of doubt, of grief, of wondering if I'd done the right thing. But then I'd remember that Christmas morning, the smirk, the silence, the way the whole room closed in like a trap. And I knew I hadn't left a family behind. I'd walked away from a pattern. And patterns don't change until you do. One night in late June, I got dinner with my friend Cass, someone I'd met through the Anchor project. She was a UX designer from Austin, dry sense of humor, brutal honesty, the kind of person who could read you in 5 seconds flat. Over tacos, she asked, "So, you ever going to tell me why you really started Anchor?" I laughed. "Because the freelance world is broken?" "Sure," she said, "but that's the pitch. I'm asking about you. What broke you enough to fix something like this?" I hesitated. Then I told her. Not the whole story, just the shape of it. The weight of being invisible in your own family. The exhaustion of showing up for people who only show up when there's something in it for them. The Christmas that snapped something in me I didn't even know was cracked. She listened without interrupting. And when I was done, she said, "Damn, that's not just broken. That's betrayal." I nodded. "Yeah. And you're still standing." I looked down at my plate. "I think I'm more than that," I said quietly. "I think I'm finally living." She smiled. "Good. Because you're just getting started." And she was right. Because there was still one thread I hadn't pulled yet. Something I hadn't told anyone. Not even Cass. Not yet. Remember the cruise I canceled? Well, I didn't refund it. I just reassigned it. To someone else. And that small, subtle act was the beginning of a much bigger move. One that would take everything I'd learned about leverage, about worth, about who I really was, and turn it into something they couldn't ignore. Because the truth was, I hadn't vanished. I'd just gone quiet. And in the silence, I was building the kind of life that didn't need anyone's approval to feel complete. But that didn't mean I'd forgotten. Not even close. I didn't set out to get revenge. Not at first. In those early months, the silence between me and my family wasn't a strategy. It was survival. I needed distance to figure out who I was when I wasn't orbiting around their expectations. And for the first time in my life, I started choosing myself without apology. But healing has a funny way of revealing things. Because once the pain faded, something else took its place. Clarity. I started looking back, not just at Christmas, but everything leading up to it, with a sharper lens. The patterns. The favoritism. The way my generosity had been weaponized against me. Not just this year, but over a lifetime. And I realized something I hadn't dared admit before. It wasn't just that they didn't appreciate me. It was that they resented me. They resented that I had pulled away from the dysfunction. That I'd carved a life they didn't understand. That I could give without strings and still not need anything from them. And once I saw that, revenge didn't feel petty anymore. It felt necessary. But this wasn't going to be some movie scene outburst or public confrontation. I wasn't interested in burning bridges just to watch the flames. No, this would be quieter, colder, more deliberate. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting, "I'm done." It's making them watch what you become without them, and then letting them realize they were never invited back in. It started with the cruise, the one I'd supposedly canceled. I never did. Instead, I rebooked the dates for a different couple, Mr. and Mrs. Langston. You wouldn't know their names, but you might know their building. They own Langston and Company Realty, the firm I used to lease my condo through. Retired now. Quiet people. Kind. I met them by chance at a local networking event for small business owners, the kind with cheap wine and paper name tags. We got to talking, hit it off, and over a few lunches, they became something like mentors. When they mentioned how they'd had to cancel their anniversary cruise due to medical bills from a hit and run earlier that year, I saw the opening. So I gave them mine. No announcement. No dramatic reveal. Just a quiet email with the itinerary, confirmation numbers, and a note that said, "Some kindness is long overdue. Happy anniversary. Enjoy the view from the balcony." They were stunned. Tried to decline. I wouldn't let them. And here's the thing. They didn't owe me anything. But kindness has a funny way of echoing back. A week later, I got a call. Mr. Langston had forwarded my info to a friend of his, the CEO of a growing tech company in Boulder. They were looking for someone to consult on remote hiring strategies and freelancer platform integration. Exactly the kind of work Anchor was built for. That one referral led to a six-figure contract, which became a case study, which led to another client, and another. Within 3 months, we'd grown Anchor's revenue by 40%, hired 2 full-time staff, launched a premium subscription tier, and then came the keynote. One of our earliest users, a copywriter named Mel who'd landed a $70,000 gig through Anchor, had nominated me to speak at a national freelancer summit in Chicago. I almost declined. I hate public speaking, but something in me said go. So I did. And when I stepped onto that stage, looked out at the packed room, and heard my name announced not as the nice older brother who buys expensive gifts, but as founder and CEO of one of the fastest-growing ethical freelancer networks in the country, something shifted. I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. I was. But here's the thing about family. They always find a way to pull you back in, even when you're miles ahead. It was late August when the first breadcrumb dropped. A Facebook post, my mom, of course, showing a picture of Natalie at a pop-up influencer event in LA. She looked good, confident, holding a mic. The caption read, "So proud of our girl, always chasing her dreams, #entrepreneur life." I almost scrolled past it, until I noticed the logo on the stage backdrop. Anchor, my company, except it wasn't our booth. We hadn't sponsored that event. Curious, I reached out to our social team. Turns out, Natalie had borrowed the name to promote her own brand-building seminar. Claimed she was an affiliate, that she worked closely with the founder, used Anchor's logo in her deck, even cited fake case studies using our metrics. I was stunned, not just at her audacity, but at how easily she assumed I'd never find out. Like I didn't own the thing she was pretending to be part of. I could have gone public, sent a cease and desist, blown her up on socials. But where's the poetry in that? No. If Natalie wanted to play pretend, I'd let her, just long enough for the trap to snap shut. So I started documenting everything. Screenshots, video clips, recorded webinars. I even had someone attend one of her branding workshops as a mystery shopper and report back. The lies were endless. But I didn't stop her. Not yet. Because I wanted her to climb. To rise high enough that the fall would hurt. And while she was busy impersonating my success, I turned my attention to Liam. It wasn't hard to find the cracks. He'd always acted like the king of IT, but a few back-channel LinkedIn searches revealed he hadn't been promoted in over 3 years. In fact, the company had quietly transitioned him to a special projects role, corporate speak for, "We're waiting for you to quit." I started asking around. One of my clients happened to have ties to Liam's company. I asked him to pull a few strings, nothing shady, just a background info swap. What we found, Liam had been funneling some of his freelance coding work through company resources. Not illegal, but a fireable offense if it got out. I didn't report him. Yet. Instead, I made a note of it. Tucked it away. Because all this, it was building towards something bigger. A moment. An opportunity. And then, just like clockwork, it arrived. Late September. An email from Mom. The subject line, "Thanksgiving plans." I stared at it for a long time before opening it. "Hi, sweetheart. We're so excited to host again this year. Everyone will be home. Even Natalie's flying in early. I know things were a bit tense after Christmas, but let's put that behind us. Life's too short to hold grudges. Liam is handling drinks. Natalie is bringing decor and vibes. LOL. And we'd love if you could take care of the catering. You always pick the best places. Let me know if you need help covering the cost. Love you always. Mom. I laughed out loud. Not because it was funny, because it was perfect. They thought I'd just slipped back into the rotation. Like nothing had happened. Like they hadn't lied to my face, mocked my generosity, and then tried to steal my company's name. They wanted the same old Nolan. The reliable son. The peacekeeper. The wallet. But they weren't getting him. Not this time. Because I was going to take care of the catering. And it was going to be legendary. Thanksgiving came fast. Too fast, honestly. You'd think pulling off a revenge this layered would take months of plotting, but really, once the pieces were set, all I had to do was sit back and wait. Like lining up dominoes. The hard part was making sure they didn't tip too early. The rest? Gravity. I confirmed with Mom that yes, I'd handle the catering. She sent back a smiling emoji and a heart, like we hadn't spent the last year pretending each other didn't exist. In her mind, we were fine now. Things were healing. Because that's how it always worked in my family. Ignore the fire long enough, and eventually someone, usually me, would walk through the ashes and say sorry, just so the holiday photos would look nice. But this time, I didn't just want the photos. I wanted the memory burned into their heads. Forever. I reached out to a boutique catering company I knew through Anchor. They specialized in ultra-high-end corporate events, private chef-style meals. We're talking white-gloved staff, personalized menus, edible gold kind of stuff. I told them I needed Thanksgiving dinner for 15, in-home service, and one very particular request. No food. The chef, bless her heart, blinked twice on the Zoom call and said, "Come again." I grinned. I want everything except the food. Set the table. Fold the napkins. Bring the silver platters, the servers in suits, the garnish. I want the illusion of a meal. But when the lids come off, I tapped the table. Nothing. She stared at me, and then she laughed. Loud and long and genuine. "You're lucky I like chaos," she said. Thanksgiving morning, I arrived right on time. I wore a dark tailored suit, crisp white shirt, no tie. Clean. Professional. Untouchable. I brought no gifts, no pies, no backup dishes. Just me, a clipboard, and a thin smile I'd practiced in the mirror the night before. The house looked the same as always, twinkling lights on the banister. The scent of cinnamon candles pumped unnaturally through every room. There were paper turkeys on the windows and fake leaves scattered across the table. Mom was in full host mode, cheeks flushed, smile tight from 3 hours of overfunctioning. "Nolan," she beamed, pulling me into a hug. "You look so handsome. Oh, we're so glad you're here. You didn't have to dress up. I wanted to," I said, letting the smile touch my eyes. "It's a special occasion." She tilted her head. "It is." "Oh yeah," I said. "Very special." The guests trickled in. Liam and his wife, Natalie in her influencer trench coat, a few family friends I hadn't seen since I was a teenager. Everyone greeted me like nothing had ever gone wrong. Surface-level warmth, like shaking hands with ghosts. Natalie, of course, was filming everything. Just a casual Thanksgiving with the fam. She whispered into her phone, zooming in on the table settings. "Ugh, look at this aesthetic." She caught me watching her and gave me a tight smile. "You didn't bring anything?" "I brought plenty," I said and walked away. The caterers arrived at 3 p.m. sharp. 3 black SUVs. 6 servers. Full kitchen staff. Chef in a pristine white coat. They moved through the house with polished precision, setting the stage like a Broadway production. Tablecloths were adjusted by millimeters. Plates gleamed like mirrors. Every serving dish was covered with a silver dome, polished to perfection. Mom nearly cried with gratitude. "Nolan, this is incredible. I can't believe you went to all this trouble." I handed her a glass of wine. "You're worth it." She looked down, touched. "I know things were weird after Christmas, but I'm glad we're moving forward." I clinked my glass to hers. "We are." Dinner was served at 5:30. Everyone gathered around the table, laughing and chatting and clinking glasses. Phones were out. Pictures were taken. Hashtags were drafted. The chef herself stood at the head of the table. "On behalf of Mr. Nolan Walker, we are honored to present a truly unforgettable Thanksgiving experience." I took my seat at the end of the table, folded my hands, and waited. With perfect choreography, the servers lifted the silver domes. Gasps echoed around the table. Empty. Every platter. Every dish. Every tray. Just empty porcelain lined with garnish and a single card that read, "This is what you served me last Christmas. Enjoy." Silence. It was beautiful. Mom stared at the card in front of her, mouth open. Liam squinted like maybe he hadn't read it right. Natalie's phone was frozen mid-video, her jaw slack. I stood. Before anyone speaks, I said, voice steady. I just want to say thank you. Truly. This moment. This is closure. What the hell is this? Liam barked. I smiled. An accurate reflection. You spent thousands of dollars for a joke? Natalie snapped. No, I said. I spent thousands to make a point. One I've spent most of my life trying to explain in smaller, quieter ways. I let my eyes sweep across the table. Last Christmas, I spent over $2,000 on gifts. Every one of you received something thoughtful, personalized, and meaningful. And in return, I got a lie. A collective performance designed to humiliate me. You hid my gifts, mocked me, dismissed me behind my back. And when I confronted you, I gestured to the cards. You smirked. Mom looked stricken. Nolan, we thought we'd lost them. It was a misunderstanding. No, it wasn't. It was orchestrated. And I would have forgiven you, truly, if it had just been a one-time lapse. But this, all of this, has been building for years. The jokes, the jabs, the way I'm only valuable when I'm paying for something or staying quiet. Natalie rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic again. I'm being done, I said. She went pale. Liam stood. This is pathetic. You want attention? Fine. You got it. I took out a remote and clicked it. The dining room TV lit up. A video began to play. It was Natalie, standing at a fake Anchor-branded event, claiming to be an affiliate, quoting metrics we never published, using my platform's name like it was hers. What is this? She hissed. Proof, I said, of trademark infringement, brand misrepresentation, and defamation. And before you assume this is just some stunt, here's the fun part. I pulled a folder from my briefcase and laid it on the table. Cease and desist. Already filed. My legal team will follow up on Monday. If you so much as breathe the name Anchor again, we'll bury you in court costs. She lunged for the remote. I let her. It didn't matter. The damage was done. I turned to Liam. As for you, you might want to check your email. His phone buzzed. He picked it up. Read. Froze. Your company's compliance officer just received a full report detailing your side projects using their servers and resources. All time-stamped. All sourced. I didn't file it. Yet. But it's ready to go. He opened his mouth. I shook my head. Don't. Silence again. And then I turned to Mom. She looked older than I'd ever seen her. Smaller. I love this family, I said softly. I tried. For 34 years. But you never made space for the version of me that didn't serve you. And now? I finally know what it feels like to stop asking for a seat at a table that was never meant for me. I turned to the chef. Pack it up. She nodded, and within seconds the staff moved into action, clearing plates, collecting silverware, dismantling the illusion. Natalie stood there, seething, phone shaking in her hand. You're unbelievable. I smiled. No, I'm free. I walked out the front door without a backward glance. The air was cold, crisp, honest. The servers followed behind me, loading trays and boxes into their SUVs like some reverse fairy tale. No pumpkin carriage, just the quiet unraveling of a lie that had lived too long. I got in my car, turned the ignition, and sat there for a second. Not to cry, not to process, just to breathe. Because for the first time in my life, my entire life, I had nothing left to prove, and everything ahead to live for. I pulled out onto the road, drove away from the house, the performance, the ghosts of who I used to be. And I didn't look back, not even once. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can serve at the table is your absence.